Hey guys, welcome back. Jason here. If you're just tuning in for the first time, I'm creating a video log of my experiences getting my private pilot license. This video is going to be documenting my third time up in the air, technically my second lesson, and let's just get into it. So today I did my third flight in a 172. This time the objectives were to practice slow flight, stalls, some different maneuverings, takeoff and landings, and since it was really like my first official lesson after signing up for some flights officially. I'm doing part 61 with an online ground school, but I got officially registered through the school to start taking lessons and get into their booking and everything else. So anyway, plane was actually really hard to start. Failed to start 3 times. On the 4th time, it actually started, which was good because I think we're only supposed to go about 3 times, and then we have to wait 10 minutes. Probably a flooding scenario. It is fuel injected, but there's some procedures to that. So we started to kind of do a little bit of in the cockpit pre-flight, got comms on, and then my mic wouldn't work. So we actually did a quick taxi over to the main hangar where the school has their office. Grabbed a second headset. Plane warm started fine, and we taxied down towards the end of the runway. We did our run up and we went full pre-flight checklist. Actually did a first radio call and called tower, let them know I was holding short of the runway. Requesting permission to take off. Actually taxied out onto the runway, which I was a little nervous about because leading up to this, I'm taxiing down, and we actually left on runway 33, and previously we have always left on 15, and it was a long taxi down there, and the whole time I'm just thinking, man, the plane is really pulling to the left. I'm having to ride right brake to keep it straight, and kind of like looked over to my instructor and told him that. And I kind of think he shrugged it off as like the plane, me, whatever. But it was like significant amount of right brake to keep it straight. So I'm getting ready to taxi on the runway for my first time. And I'm like, oh man, just trying to keep this thing lined up. I'm about to, put power in, and it's like, all right, well, I hope all is well. But got on the center line, full power, came up to speed, rotate. Did a little bit better on my climb. I find myself. This is now the third 172, which had, I think, a G5 setup in it. I'm just bouncing between, 6-pack, G1000, G5. It's just overload, really. So, trying to, right now, he's having me do more pitch angle, not constant climb speed necessarily, so shooting for about 10 degrees. And I think my problem with that is, obviously it's so new, but trying to fixate on the screen, and I look up, I fixate on the screen, then my I've got, I look down and I'm a little bit uncoordinated, or, the wings aren't level, then I'm doing my look around left to right. By the time I look down, you know, I can actually feel I'm a little uncoordinated again. You know, it's just a lot all at once, as if you're going through this, I'm sure you know. But anyway, so we taxied out to more of like a practice area, and then we did some clearing turns. I actually got up to altitude, did both left, then followed by a right 90-degree clearing turn, and it was kind of up to me to execute that and do the look around and check for traffic, be listening to the comms. I have the instructor's ForeFlight open up on his iPad on my leg, looking at traffic, which is good, but, you know, again, it's, you know, sensory overload, but, you know, you got to keep feeding in all these little bits and pieces to get used to it. So then we did some prep to get into slow flight. I think he demonstrated the first power off stall, and then I executed, I think, 2 power off stalls. Then he asked if I wanted to see power on stall, which he had never demonstrated before. So we, you know, got up to speed, pitched the plane up while applying full power, and let it come into a stall. Really, it was really insignificant. I really kind of thought it was going to be more of a sudden drop, kind of like you're falling type feeling. It really wasn't. He actually demonstrated it twice, and then, you know, mentioned, you know, what he's doing, a lot of right rudder, you know, blah, 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 and talking about coordination. And then it took a tremendous amount based on the winds and just the conditions. I was just pulling back. It felt like forever. I'm trying to, you know, keep the wings level, trying to make sure I'm coordinated. And right as it's going to in the stall, of course, you know, I'm looking at all the instruments. I'm about to be coordinated. It was like a partial. It was a stall, but it wasn't like really the full experience. The right wing dropped a little bit, and I'm uncoordinated. Then we set back up for another attempt. The second attempt was actually worse. It went into the actual full stall, and I was uncoordinated coming into it, and I actually bailed out of kind of like the procedure that we had talked about, and he put a lot of left rudder correction in there because we were actually pushing the edge of entering into a spin. And, you know, it was actually good because, you know, a lot of this learning is learning what to do, but there's a lot of value in learning what not to do, which is often even more important. But seeing how close you were to a spin like that, being uncoordinated, you know, just became really evident. Third time did much better. Again, really fighting to have, you know, I think the third time I was all the way back on the yoke to try to maintain pitch to get into the stall. And I think that was a lot of the issue too, is like, so now I'm up for my third stall. The second time was like basically a fail, but I actually felt good about it. And he's just like, not egging me on, but like, yeah, let's do it again. And then, you know, third time, of course, you know, it's just waiting. And then all my movements and lack of movements just get exaggerated over that time. You know, I'm coordinated, I'm not coordinated, I'm fighting it. what I found myself doing is, putting in a lot of right rudder to stay coordinated. If I actually put in too much, or when I'm, trying to recover after the right ring drops, because that's what I've been doing. By the time I'm backing off on right rudder, it's really too late. I need to be pulling back on it much harder, and even coming on left rudder to more snap out of that quicker. I think I kind of got, not gun shy, but in the previous lesson I talked about wing wag and kind of like over controlling the ailerons, which I told myself I wasn't going to do because I anticipated all of this coming in, that, from my boating experience, you can really oversteer a boat, and a lot of that kind of sloshing back and forth, evens out on its own, and you trying to fight that not only exaggerates it, but most often creates it in the first place. You can see your heading shifting a little bit, and truth be told, it was probably about to correct itself, and then you applied correction, and now we're overcorrected to the other side. So from the last time, I've kind of been trying to be aware of all of my control inputs like that. And then in these cases, I'm actually too slow. So I'm too slow, taxiing with directional control with the rudder pedals. By the time I get off center a little bit, now this was exaggerated also with this hard pull to the left, but rudder pedals there, and actually rudder pedal use in the air, staying coordinated. So after that power on stall, we went into some Dutch rolls, and it was really eye-opening, as simple as it was, because previously every time I'm entering a turn, I'm just using ailerons because I know nothing, right? And it's working, and as I'm going through the turn, I am looking at my coordination and applying right rudder and left rudder when necessary to stay coordinated. But it was really like one and then the other. So we're doing these kind of quick back and forth, kind of like a slalom type turns. And then also I just, went ahead and, did a little turn to the left, a little to the right, and you can watch the nose just really kind of slosh and actually point away from the direction you're trying to turn. Then he demonstrated actually just using rudder control to turn with a neutral aileron position. And that was good. That's part of like all this is like, I almost wish I had like an hour in the air of like zero goals, from a class, room environment, no instruction, just flying the airplane, climbing, descending, turns, and just getting a feel for throttle and all the various controls. Without any goal in mind, just really getting a feel for the airplane. That's kind of how I feel like I would go about it, given, like say you were on a four-wheeler or a dirt bike or something for the first time. I just want to get a good feel for everything to sort of anticipate that. But, we're kind of going through, standard procedures and whatnot to some degree, but doing the Dutch rolls was good. So then I introduced rudder while introducing aileron, and it was kind of like a light bulb coming on. You could watch really the nose track as you rolled into the turn, and it just kind of started to make sense. So that was good. Let's see. So we did power off stalls, power on stalls, the Dutch rolls, introducing some of that rudder control. With the power on stalls, it was actually the first time that I controlled flaps. And so the flaps on the 172, of course, is already off to your right. It's pretty far over there. You have a selector that actually drives the flaps and then an indicator that shows their position. And I really expected like a detent, like 10 degrees, 20 degrees, 30 degrees, and to feel detents on the control, or I was expecting like shelves, come down 10 and then almost like a little jump over to 20, then 30, and you'd be coming down on steps. And I mentioned something about it because I kept going 10 to 20, 10 to 20, or not quite 10 or whatever. And he said that, it's kind of like worn away, and, it really didn't click. So I'm going to be taking the rest of my lessons on a 152, because the wet rate is 100 an hour versus 145 or 50 for the 172. I'd have to look back into that. I actually kind of think it's a weird number. It might be like 154 wet. But it's going to save me a fair amount of money over the long haul. And actually would have started this lesson in the 152, but it was kind of last second and already booked up. But I actually had the 152 booked for actually the next 2 months, twice a week. So I after our lesson was over, I actually got to just sit in the 152, no one was using it. I just sat in there for probably 10, 15 minutes. Got accustomed to, adjusting my seat and just the 152 versus the 172. This 152 is a 1980 model. It's actually a 152-2, which to my understanding just has the upgraded nav in it. First time being in a 152, so I really knew nothing about it, but just wanted to familiarize myself. The trim is in a different location. Some things are in a different location. This is a carbureted engine, so you have carb heat, and there's some other just various differences I wanted to familiarize. Took some pictures of the console, the controls, the outside of the plane, and really just started mentally preparing for that difference. And also now I have some pictures for some reference if I want. I also took a picture of the GPS. It's got a Garmin up on top of the console, and I wanted to pull up the user manual to at least familiarize myself with a kind of like a quick start guide, so I'm not wasting time and I'm feeling a little bit more comfortable manipulating that if necessary. Still haven't manipulated any comms or other devices. The instructor's been setting all that up. But my point here is I was practicing with the flaps just in there, and it's a night and day difference. So there is actually, the controls look identical, and there is actually noticeable steps. And I think the 172, the steps are actually just worn to like a rounded slope, and they're now more of like a ramp, which is, without experience, almost impossible to judge where you are. And you're trying to wings level, maintain your attitude, maintain your airspeed, and you're about to introduce flaps, so you're anticipating for that, and you're now buried down your attention trying to reach over and guess where the flaps are. It's a lot. But anyway, I'm a little bit more confident in that, and next time I'm not going to be flying the 172 for a while, like I said earlier, but in that plane specifically, and just in the future. So then when I'm going to engage flaps, I'm going to pull the control a little bit towards me to the left, just enough to get it to catch on those steps and get a feel for that. The 152, like I said, I mean, it's pretty, you know, it's just like if you have an automatic transmission, you can feel the gate, you know, controlling your movements. I mean, it does have positive feedback. So I like that. It should be a no-brainer. I should just be able to reach over, know where it is, and feel it in that plane. But in the future, maybe some pressure towards that step will help gauge where that is. But anyway, got some experience with the flaps, anticipating how the plane reacts when you put in different degrees of flaps. And so we actually called tower. He called tower to get clearing for landing. We actually did a straight in final approach, and came in. We were about a 500 foot per minute descent, and you know, we put in 10, 20, 30. I think he did flaps that time. Let's see, I got to the runway and started my flare. It was really the first time that I was really controlling the flare fully. It's also hard to tell when I have full control of the airplane, and he's like, most of the time he doesn't even ghost my controls, but he will put in inputs here and there. So it's kind of confusing. Obviously, he needs to do that to make sure that we aren't going beyond a threshold that if we go too much farther, it's going to be too difficult to correct. But when he's putting like even slight little bumps of input in, it throws me off because, again, I don't have that feel for the airplane yet, or airplanes in general. So it's confusing. You know, I can't tell all the time what is the airplane's feedback, mechanically, air movement, whatever, and then what's his. It adds to the complexity of trying to get that feel. But we actually flared pretty good, came down on the main gear. I think I touched right wheel first. Got the nose down pretty shortly after, put in full power. Again, for whatever reason, you know, on lesson 1, he was like, you know, put in full power over a 2-second time. And I think that was when we were doing maybe our run-ups for mag checks. And ever since then, I've had this weird habit of putting the power in slow. Also, the power, probably from like idle up to like 2,000 RPMs, the feedback on that is pretty, you can anticipate it, and it's pretty smooth. Then it's weird because the last inch or better of throttle movement, you only get a couple hundred more RPMs out of it. So it's really weird. You're getting a huge percentage up front, and then at the end, so I find myself like pushing it in 80% of the way and almost like stopping. Well, I do stop, and he's like, full power, just slam it. And like in my head, I'm like, I get it, but you know, I'm feeling it, and it's like, it's really not gaining me that much. That 20% is of movement on the throttle is maybe 3% of, or maybe 5% of power increase at that point. It's kind of weird. I don't know if that is a symptom of the way it's adjusted, or that's just inherent to the functionality of these planes, this model. I'm not sure. But so that goes kind of goes back into it being smooth on the controls, but in certain scenarios, in certain controls like that, like if we're going to do, you know, if we're going to touch down and then take back off, it just needs to be full power right away. Not so much worrying about, I don't know, being jerky or the way the engine's going to respond to that. Just basically jam it in. So get up to rotate speed, rotate. It was good to get in another climb experience. So we climbed out. We actually made a right turn. All this was kind of backwards than before. So we were taking off on 3-3 and making right turns, whereas previously we had been taking off 1-5 and doing left turns. So this was, a little bit different. So right turn, then, making another right turn and doing my downwind, heading out. We're actually heading out over the water, trying to get some more experience and feel for my right turns, trying to gauge bank angle, as well as when I've completed a 90-degree turn. I have a tendency to want to gauge that almost entirely off of visuals. So, if I'm flying parallel to the runway, I find myself looking in front of me and to the ground. Of course, at this point, we're over water. But I'm starting my right turn, and I find myself trying to look back to gauge when I'm 90 degrees now to perpendicular to the runway, but I can't see it. So now I am 90 degree turn to base, and trying to judge that. So we go in for the second landing, and there's actually jets taking off on the runway for the National Guard there, and that was pretty wild. One of them actually took off after we took off after the first landing, and that was pretty neat to see. Look back, he took control as I look back and watch him take off. So second time coming in was all around more in my control. I think I ran flaps myself second time in, and did a decent flare, but actually ended up landing pretty flat. So what I found I did was, instead of just letting the airspeed bleed off, I was more concerned controlling my pitch. I'm not really sure why, but that's what happened. So it landed soft, but landed more flat. And I don't know if that was just because I kind of think I was almost trying to get the nose down. I think that's what it was. So instead of letting the airspeed bleed off, I was trying to get the plane to land, if that makes any sense. All in the back of my head, every time that front nose wheel touches down, all I can think of is the plane screaming over to the left because it was pulling left. And but I actually did well. And I'm also nervous at the speed we're traveling, because it's such a weird thing to get used to, the rudder control while you're steering on the ground. And there's this dead area. You can actually kind of pulse the pedals back and forth, and the wheel stays straight. So it's a combination of this weird delay. It has a feedback as if there's a tremendous amount of play. I haven't figured out what it is, because if that play was in there, then I would think that it has, it could be the camber. So the wheel might be able to track straight with its geometry, and maybe there is play in there, or it's just a kind of a symptom of the control. I'm not sure, but it's a really non-positive feedback. situation that really does not instill any confidence in where the wheel is relevant to your control input, and the feedback is dull and delayed. So it's not a confidence booster, when, you touch that front wheel down and then you're going full power. It's like a send it situation, and you're like, man, I hope this thing tracks straight. And luckily, since we already had speed, from coming in and touching down like that, your taxiing, if you will, while still on the ground, getting ready to take off, is very brief. So by the time you touch down and then you're full power, we're talking maybe like 15 knots or something indicated, and then we're at rotate speed. So brief, which actually was kind of a relief to not be so fixated on how the airplane's tracking in that time, getting better feel for taking back off. And I think the whole time he was just running flaps, pulling flaps, getting ready for that takeoff, which is helpful, but it's also hindering because I'm not doing that procedure. I wouldn't say we were rushed, but I felt hurried because we have, I guess they're A10s, queuing up to take off. If it was up to me, I would rather land and then go for maybe 500 foot, and I'm pulling, flaps away, getting a little situated, then taking off. It felt like we touched the nose, maybe hit like 200 foot. We're already, full power's already in, and at the 500 mark or less, we're rotating. But anyway, it was good to do a little bit of pattern work. Going out that second time, the GPS actually has a magenta line that's lined up with the runway, and I can actually use that to see if I'm dipping into, the runway side of the down leg, or if I'm parallel. It helps me gauge my turns a little bit, but I really don't want to be dependent on that either. I've since in online ground school last night actually learned about VOR, Vortec, whatever. So it's all things that I'm going to talk to my instructor about. That's part of my thing with the 152 also, is instead of just the financial aspect, I really want to learn on a plane that's more fundamental, not to think of it as being more simple. Actually, in a lot of ways, it's more difficult. I don't want to become reliant on, the G5, the G1000, 4-flight, whatever. I want them to all be tools. I want them to be, I have this plus this. I'm doing my own dead reckoning, and hey, I have this support. I really want to learn in such a way that I really have a good handle on the fundamentals. That way, when all that stuff fails or is not available, or it crashes, dies, whatever, I'm not in a situation that is unfamiliar. Really have a good understanding of pilotage aside from those devices. So anyway, so that's part of that. The third time we're coming in, and actually the A10s are, I think there was 4 of them holding short for me, which is stressful. I guess it's easy to say after the fact that we don't let that stress you. Don't let anyone or anything hurry you. You're in control of the aircraft. I have clearance from the tower. It's my job to maintain my safety and the safety of those around me. But it's weird, you know, we're on final. There's an A-10 taking off. They're queued up. And actually, I think both previous times I had a Cessna, either from our school or, you know, a private individual lined up behind me. The one time, I think it was the first time coming in. Yeah, that's what it was. We're going over the river there, and he's actually behind me 600 foot lower. We were probably like 1,500 descending to pattern altitude. And, you know, towers directing him, you know, hold this, and, you know. So the whole time those three landings did feel rushed, at least in the back of my mind a little bit. But anyway, the third time, our approach speed was high, probably like 105. I don't know, at the distance, we were probably 1 mile out, still going that fast. And the instructor, I think, was really, he was running the final, and so he's really trying to drop a lot of altitude and bleed off airspeed. We're coming in. We're now in a forward slip that he's demonstrating. I learned a little bit about that previously, and so he gets us down to probably, I'm going to say like 700 foot, and that's my control of the airplane to descend the remaining. And actually, given all that's going around, that was my best landing yet. Touchdown pretty evenly on the rear gear, got the nose down, and then you know, we were taxiing, put some power in to taxi pretty quick to get down between us and the first turnoff point. Again, feeling rushed. All I can think in the back of my mind is this thing tracking straight, because we're trying to get off the runway for these jets to take off. We cross the threshold, and tower is, you know, giving them the go, and they are like literally just screaming off right behind us. So anyway, we pull off. Then we got a long taxi back to the hangar, and man, this thing is really pulling left. And I said something about it again. I said, you know, your controls if you want to feel it. And as soon as I let off, I mean, we're veering left, and he played with it a couple times, got us on the center line. I mean, it's just obvious. We got way, probably at least a half a wingspan over to the right of the center line. He held it straight, and before you know it, the whole plane is left of the center line. We both think that it's probably like the brakes dragging on the left, whether it's like a pad retraction issue or somehow they're being partially activated. Who knows? But it was good confirmation to know that, like, man, you know, some of this is some mechanical stuff. You know, these planes are trainers. They you know, they're abused. And it's, you know, instructor, you know, with the student, and it's just kind of like, in the ideal world, in and out, in and out, in and out, just, you know, banging those time slots, making the most use out of the daylight, the weather, what have you. Is it unsafe? It's probably getting to the point where it is, but regardless, I don't think it's good for students to have to deal with that. There's enough going on already without control issues like that. But anyway, I'll wrap it up here, and I appreciate you watching. I left the lesson feeling really good. Actually drove out on the airfield and went to the T hangar for the 152, like I mentioned earlier. got a good feel for it. It's going to be a small plane to learn in, but I'm happy for the cost savings. I have a pretty good feeling about the plane as far as being an okay fit going forward. And I felt good about the lesson. Again, all this is so new. I'm sure you guys will, and maybe if you're doing it now, are experiencing a lot of the same things. But actually, felt good about it. I went to the FBO after the fact and picked up some sectionals and airport directories. I actually got them pinned up on my wall. And, I'm just feeling good about where I am in my journey so far. Super excited. It's a tremendous amount to take in, but I'm trying to stay up on my ground school. I'm about 60% through Sporty's online private pilot right now. And my goal is to get through all the videos of that, then go to various, the top various textbooks, start going through them, start looking at some test prep, and utilizing the textbooks to reinforce things that I need some help on. And also I want to start going through some test questions to be like, hey, I know that, or I don't know anything about that, or I need to revisit that. And then information from the textbooks, maybe rewatch some of the videos, YouTube, talk to the instructor, whatever, to start really channeling and narrowing down what I have left to learn. Now, of course, there's still a tremendous amount left, but I'm trying to really stay ahead with ground school to understand what and why while I'm in the air right now with my lessons. So to best utilize the instructor's time, my time, and also to reduce some of that overload while I'm, going through various tasks. Hey, we're doing slow flight. I know about slow flight. I've never practiced it, but hey, I know about it. We're doing, I'm entering the left downwind leg. Okay, I know, standard, left traffic patterns and, all that kind of stuff. But I appreciate you guys watching. Please subscribe, give this video a like, comment down below. I'm really building a whole set of resources on my end. I would like to put them out on a website to help others going through the process. Actually reserved a domain and I'm working on that with all of this. So that won't be available for a while, but put your comments below and I can reach out individually as I build up that resource to help you guys. And this is really just a fun thing for me. You get a little tiny section in your logbook. I write down kind of like a debrief elsewhere. So I have that, to learn and just for my record. And then I thought this video log would be helpful for me to look back and also help people going through the process to kind of see how I progress and kind of instill confidence for them on, what to expect going through the private pilot license program. So again, thanks for watching. I hope to see you guys on the next video. I know I'm looking forward to flying again. It's all I think about. Flying again in another few days, and I'm just super excited. So all you guys, keep studying, keep that excitement going, and I'll see you on the next video. Thanks.